Join me as we learn Chitas together for Thursday, the fifth Torah reading in Parshas Vayishlach, chapter 34, verse 1. Yesterday we discussed as Yaakov and his family finally escaped from Lavan and Esav, and they come to the city of Shechem that Yaakov purchased. Today we continue about the Jewish peoples living in the city of Shechem. Vateitze Dina bas Leah asher yolda Yaakov. And Dina, the daughter of Leah, who has been born to Yaakov, went out, lireis bivnei haaretz, to observe the girls of that region. Rashi, Vateitze Dina bas Leah, why does he call her here the daughter of Leah? Why not bas Yaakov, v'loi bas Yaakov, not the daughter of Yaakov? Which generally, the Torah usually refers to any of the people, he refers to the father. Elal Shem Yitziyasa, because of the fact that she went out. Nikras Bas Leah, she was called the daughter of Leah. She'af hi Yatzanis, because she was similar to her mother, who had the propensity for going out, for leaving her confines. As it says, Shenemar, Vateitze Leah Likrosei, and Leah went out to greet him, which was she went to greet Yaakov when Rachel gave her the flower, when she gave Rachel the flowers that Reuven brought in. Valel, Mashla, and Dina, the parable is given ki ima kibita, like a mother, like daughter. Vayar oisa Shechem ben Chamor, and Shechem the son of Chamor the Chivite, the Chivite Nisia Oretz, who was at the time the chief of the region, saw her. Vayikach oisa, and he took her. Vayishkav oisa, and he raped her. Vayinah, and he abused her. What's the double terminology? So Rashi says, Vayishkav oisa, and he raped her kedarka in the normal fashion. Vayaneh, and he abused her shalei kedarka in not, and he was intimate with her also in the unusual way. Verse 3, Vatidbak nafshe bedina, and he became attached to the daughter of Dina bas Yaakov, the daughter of Yaakov. Dina, the daughter of Yaakov. Vayev asanara, and he loved the girl. Vayidaber alev hanara, and he spoke to the girl's heart. What does this mean? He spoke to her heart and trying to win her over, as we're going to see in Rashi. Alev hanara, on the heart of the girl. Dvarim hamisyashvim al alev, words that will try to win her over, that she should be able to be convinced to be with him. He would say to her, Re'i, look, avich b'chalkas sadektana kama mamin bizbeis. Look how much money your father spent over a small little field. Ani asoich, I will marry you as a woman, as a wife, and as a husband, and you'll be my wife. V'sikni kola ir v'chol sadiseh, and you can acquire all the fields and the entire city. Verse number 4. Vayomer Shechem el Chamor Raviv, and Shechem spoke to his father Chamor. Lamer saying as follows: Kachli esayalda lisha, get me this girl as a wife. Verse 5, Yaakov shama kitime es dina vitei, and Yaakov heard now that Shechem has defiled his daughter Dina. Ubanav hayu es mikneu basada, and his children were in the field with the livestock. Vehechlish Yaakov ad bayam, and Yaakov kept quiet until they would come home. Meanwhile, Shechem's father, Chamor, went out to speak with Yaakov, with him about his son. Verse number 7, and the children of Yaakov came back from the field. When they heard that what Shechem did to Dina, and they became deeply aggrieved and upset. Lahem mi'oid, and they became very angry. Ki nevala asa b'Yisrael, because a terrible sin, such a terrible thing has been happening. That such a terrible thing, disgusting thing happened amongst them. Lishkav es bas Yaakov, that a daughter of Jacob, a daughter of Yaakov, was raped. V'chein lo ye'asa, such a thing should not happen. Rashi, v'chein lo ye'asa. What does it mean, v'chein lo ye'asa? Meaning that even the nations of the world who had to observe the 7 Noahide laws, this was something that was not allowed to be done. Lani sasapsulis, to rape and to abuse girls, as Shem did, as one of the 7 Noachide laws was to also refrain from any type of adultery and type of promiscuity, and because of that, this was something that should not be done, even though that they were non-Jews and they were Noachites. Verse number 8. Vayidaber Chamor item, and Chamor spoke to them, Lamer, saying, Shchem b'ni choshka nafshe bevitchem. Shchem, my daughter, deeply desires. Shchem, my son, deeply desires your daughter. Bevitchem, in your daughter. Tanu na oisa loy liisha. Please give her, I implore you, give her to me, to him, in marriage. What does the word choshka mean? Rashi says, verse 8, chavtza, he desires. He desires to marry her. Verse 9, V'yischatnu eisanu b'nei seichem, V'yischatnu eisanu, and intermarry with us, b'nei seichem titnu lanu, our daughters we will give to you, V'es b'nei seinu, and your daughters tikchu lachem, we will give you daughters, and you can take our daughters for yourselves. Verse 10, V'yitanu teishevu, and you'll be able to live amongst us. Va'aretz tiyu lifnechem, and the land will be open for you to enjoy. Shvu, to settle here. Uscharu, and to trade here. V'heyachazu ba, and acquire holdings in it as well. Verse number 11, Vayemer Shchem alavia v'lachea, and then Shchem comes and says to her brother and her father, Emtza chen beinechem, let me find favor in your eyes. V'ashar toimru alai etein, and whatever you tell me to give as a dowry, I will give. Harbu alai me'od moyar, verse number 12, Harbu alai me'od moyar. You can go ahead and demand from me exceedingly amount of high figure of dowry. Umaton, and gifts. Ve'etna, and I will give it to you. Kasher toimru alai, like you tell me, whatever the contract you say for whatever gifts I will have to give, no problem. Usnili as anara leisha, just give me the girl as a wife. Rashi, what does the word moihar mean? In this case means kesuba, the amount of money that they commit to give in the ketubah. The amount of money that a person commits to give in marriage, that he also, not only in marriage that he's going to support the wife, but also, if God forbid there is a divorce or death, that there will still be the money, a prenuptial agreement that they agree to. Verse 13, Vayanu b'nei Yaakov Shechem v'Chamer aviv, and the children of Yaakov and answered Shechem and Chamer his father, Mirmirma, cleverly, Vayedaberu, and they spoke, Asher timei esachin estina achisam, that they have defiled their sister Dinah. 13, Bemirma, Bechachma, cleverly. Doesn't mean that they were lying, but in a way of cunningly, to be able to get, to deceive them a little bit, that they shouldn't know what's going on. And they said as follows, verse number 14. Vayomru aleim, and they said, and they told them, Leinu chalasis adavraza, we cannot do such a thing, lasis achaisenu, to give our sister, leisha sharli arla, to a man who is not circumcised. Ki cherpe hilani, this would be a disgrace for us. Asher timei, previous Rashi of verse 13, Asher timei, that they defiled. This is not from the words of Yaakov to the people of Shechem and Chamor. Hakos of Eimer came. The verse is telling us the fact that they were saying this cleverly and they weren't cheating them. Why were they coming up with such a type of plan? Was because Dinah was defiled by because Shechem and Chamor was defiled by them, defiled Dinah, their sister. Cherpai. What does it mean? The word cherpa, disgrace? Shemetz psul. It's a kind of disgrace. Who had slain by us? Habala charif, a person that comes to embarrass Chaveri, his friend. Who Aimerly tells him, Arelata, you're uncircumcised. A ben Arel, you're the son of an uncircumcised person. Therefore, the word cherpa, b'chol makim, the word cherpa in any place is giduf, is a type of disgrace where a person embarrasses another individual by it. Verse number 15. Ach b'zei this is the only way that we will assent to such a condition. If you're going to be like us, they will circumcise every male. Then, verse 16, We will give you our daughters, lachem to you, vespaneseichem nikachlanu, and your daughters we will take for ourselves, yashavnu itchem, and we will live together with you, vayinu lam echad, and will be for a singular nation. Rashi, v'nosanu, the word v'nosanu, if you notice, the nun hashniya mudgeshes, it has a nun that is stressed, is particular, lefishi mishameshes b'makim shtei nunin, as we mentioned previously, that whenever you have the nun, which has an extra dagesh, which has the extra dot in it, is telling us because it is taking the place of an extra nun that's not there, because technically it should be v'nosananu in a double nun. So really there should be three nuns, telling us that we will give. So the nu is we, nasan, which is the root word, but he puts the dot in the nun to be able to show that it's in place of an extra nun. If you look at the actual words of the verse, at the moitza you will find b'tanai she'amar chamer leYaakov, in the condition that Chamor that says to Yaakov, and as well b'tshuvas b'nei Yaakov leChamor, in the response that the children of Yaakov give to Chamor, shetolu achashivus b'nei Yaakov, that they put, that you can see the importance is on the fact of the children of Yaakov, meaning that they use that the children of Yaakov are the ones giving and are the ones taking. They are the priority here, meaning that they shlikach b'nei Shechem, that the children of Yaakov can take from the daughters of Shechem, whoever they would like to choose, and they're going to be able to give their daughters also according to their will and desire, that they will have the choice to give and to take whichever they'd like. The ksiv, as it says, and we will give our daughters according to what we decide. And your daughters we will take for us according to what we wish as well. And later on in verse 21, you see that when the people of when Chamor and Shechem talked to the people of their city, they also again however they switch it cleverly, telling the people the opposite. That we are the ones important and we get to decide. We're going to take their daughters as we wish, and our daughters we're going to give to them according to their desire, because they wanted that they should accept, that they should accept to circumcise themselves. So therefore they said that they are going to have the ability to give their daughters as well. Verse number 17. But if you're not going to listen to us and you're not going to circumcise, and we'll take our sister, our daughter, our father's daughter, which is our sister, and we will depart and have a nice day. And these terms were acceptable in the eyes of Chamor, ben Chamor, and in the eyes of Shechem, the son of Chamor. Verse 19. The young man did not delay in carrying out the Seidia, because he desired to have Yaakov's daughter. And he was the most respectful person in his father's household. Verse 20. And his son came El Shar Iru to the gate of the city. And they spoke to the people of the city. That's where everybody used to gather, by the gates of the city. That was the place where people would get together for meetings whenever they had an announcement to make. And they spoke to the men of their city as follows. Verse 21. These people, they're fully at peace with us. They're fully at peace with us. And they let them live in the land. And they will bring good business here, they'll make trade. And the land that we're in, there's ample room here for them to hang out and to stay and to make business here. As their daughters, we will take their daughters as wives. Lenashim as wives, and our daughters, we will give them according to our discretion. As you see, he's trying to convince the people, and therefore he says it's our discretion how it's going to go about. Rashi, verse 21, what does it mean? Shleimim, b'shalem, with peace, ubalev shalem, and with a complete heart, without any differences of opinion. They want to settle here without any issues. What does it mean that the land has ample space? Like a man who has a generous hand, and he's willing to give up. You guys are not going to lose anything from it. Pragmatia, they're going to bring business here. Harbi Bolakan, they're going to bring a lot of business because we have a lot of business, but there's no buyers. But now that they're going to come here, we have no worries. Don't worry about the price going up. They're going to bring business and everything's going to work out. Verse 22. However, for them to live here, they have one condition. But only on this condition will these men consent. To live with us. To become one nation. We're going to have to circumcise all males. Just as they are circumcised. Verse 22, Rashi, Behimoil. This is Behimoil is made up of two words. Behiyos Nimil, because they are circumcised. Verse 23. Miknehem, after all, he says Miknehem, their livestock, Vikinyanim and all their possessions, V'chol behemtam and all their animals. Halilanuhim, that will all become ours. Let us just agree to their condition that we should become circumcised and they will live amongst us. Let us agree that this thing to become circumcised, and because of this, they will stay together with us and become one nation. Verse 24. And they listened to what Chamor had to say, and to Shechem's son. All the people that came out from the gate of the city who were there gathered. And they circumcised themselves, all the people that came to the meeting at the gateway of the city. Verse 25. And it was on the third day, when they were in great pain. And the two children of Yaakov, the two sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi, Ache Dina, the brothers of Dina, Ish Charbe, they took their sword, Vayavayu ala ir, and they came upon the city, Betach, confidently, Vayargu kol zachar, and they killed every male. Rashi, verse 25. Shnei b'nei Yaakov, the two sons of Yaakov. Why is he telling us they're the two sons of Yaakov? Don't we know that they're two sons of Yaakov? We learned in the previous parasha already who Yaakov's sons were. What he tells us is, Banav Hoyu, they were his sons. V'afal b'kei nogu atzman Shimon v'Levi kishar hanashim she'inam banav. Even though they were the sons of Yaakov, but still in all the pasuk, the verse is alluding to us the fact that even though they were the sons of Yaakov, they made as if they were strangers, not the sons of Yaakov. Because they did not ask Yaakov permission before they went and did this, and not as sons that would respect their father and ask their father's permission, they went ahead and did it on their own. Ache Dina, the brothers of Dina, were all the brothers were the brothers of Dina. Why only him? Because they sacrificed their life to save her, therefore they were called her brothers. Betach, confidently. Why were they so confident they would be able to kill them? Because they were in great pain from their circumcision and they did not have the strength to fight back. Medrash Agada, the Medrash explains, they were confident because they had the power of Yaakov behind them. Though they did not ask Yaakov's permission, but they knew that Yaakov was praying for them, and that's why later on when he gives the city of Shechem, he says, B'charbi uvekashti, that I conquered it with my sword and my bow, and it's explained because of his prayer that he was praying that they should be successful. The Rebbe points out an interesting thing that over here from this verse we learn that bar mitzvah age is at 13, because Shimon and Levi were 13 at this point, and the Torah calls them a ish, a man. So from here we know that a man is at the age of 13. The interesting thing is that we find that we use a place in the Torah, first of all, where their father did not necessarily agree with what they'd done, and we call them an ish, a man. Why from this verse, out of all verses of the Torah, do we learn the age of bar mitzvah? And the Rebbe goes on to explain because as we see that Shimon and Levi sacrificed themselves, went on Mesiras Nefesh, sacrificed their lives to be able to save their sister Dinah, teaching us that the first obligation of a man that reaches the age of mitzvahs, that every man should realize his obligation to put his life on the line to save another Jew, regardless of its instance. Verse 26. V'es Chamer v'Shchem. They also killed Chamer and his son Shchem. Hargul ificharev, they killed by the sword. Vayikchu es Dinah, and they took Dinah mebeis Shchem from the house of Shchem. They rescued her. Vayitzeu, and they left. Verse 27. Bnei Yaakov bo'ol hachalolim. The children of Yaakov, Yaakov's sons, came upon the slain. Vayavoizu ha'ir, and they plundered the city. Asher timu achoisam, that is defiled their sister. What does it mean? Ala chalalim. They came to them lefashet, to take what they had as chalalim, their clothing, their jewelry, and all the things that were there. V'chein targim unklas. So too the unklas explains lachalotza ketilaya, to undress, to take whatever they had from the people that they killed. Verse 29. V'es kol chelam, and they. Verse 28. Es tzainam, their flock, vespekaram, and their sheep, vespekaram, their flock, es chamereim, their donkeys, ves asher ba'ir, and everything that was in the city, ves asher ba'asad, and everything that was in the field, lakachu, they took. Verse 29. Ves kol chelam, and they took all their money, ves kol tapam, and their children, ves nasheim, and their wives, shavu, they plundered, they took in captivity, vayavoizu, and they plundered everything they had, ves kol asher babayis, and everything that was in their houses. What does the word chela mean? Rashi explains, mamoinam, their money. V'chein, so too you see later on in the book of Deuteronomy when it talks about a person saying, I have accomplished everything. My power, my strength made this entire wealth. Or you also see it in Numbers, that the Jew, Yisrael, made wealth. More like in Tehillim it says, and they left for others their wealth. Shavu, they took in captivity. Lefichach tamoy l'shin shivya means captivity. Lefichach tamim milera. Therefore, the word shavu is every time the cantillation, and where you find the letter is under the base. Shavu. It's not in the beginning. The word is mila'el milera. Where you put the stress of the word, either at the beginning, the first word or second word, telling us that this is that they took them in captivity. Verse 30. Yaakov said to Shimon and Levi, you have taken away my peace. You have taken away my peace of mind. Because you have embarrassed me amongst the inhabitants of the land. By the Canaanites and the Perizzites. I'm only a few people. They will gang up against me. They will attack me. And they'll wipe out me and my family. Rashi, achartam, what does the word acharta mean? Comes from the word losh nachurim, dirty. You have dirtied my name. You have made my reputation bad. Or you've made that I don't have a clear mind anymore. Ein dait itzlul. I don't have a clear mind. I'm concerned. I'm afraid. Agada, the Medrash explains, the wine that was in the jug was clear. You made it dirty, you shook it around, and because of that, all the sediment came up to the top. Why was this? Because since there was a tradition by the Canaanites, that they're going to fall in the hands of Jacob. They would say, when was the guarantee that was only going to be later on when they'll inherit the land? And therefore they were quiet and they didn't say anything. But now that you guys are starting to make a ruckus, you're shaking up the sediment, things are coming to the top, they're going to say, oh, he's starting to get us now, we should be worried. Mesei Mispar, what does the word Mesei Mispar mean? Anashimuatim, few people. What does Shimon and Levi respond to their father? When they responded, should we treat our sister like a woman who is not protected? That she's away and nobody protects her? Is she hefker? Rashi uses the terminology. Is she's everyone's property? Is our sister hefker, that anybody wants? Hefker means that anybody can come and take her? No, without protection. Esachisenu, our sister. Yasach Hasana, this is our sister. We got to watch over. Chapter 35, verse 1. Now the Torah comes back and telling us about Yaakov on his way back to Beis El. Yaakov, and God comes to Yaakov and he tells him, Kum ale Beis El, get up and go to Beis El. V'shev sham, and settle there and live there. V'asei sham mizbeach, and make an altar. Lekel anira elecha, to the God who has appeared to you, bevarachacha mipnei Esav achicha, when you were running away from Esav your brother. Kum alei, cut up and go. What happened here? Rashi tells us here, why is God coming to tell him this? Because you delayed. Vaderech in the way. Nashta, you were then punished. And therefore, Dina was taken away because you promised to make an altar and bring a sacrifice. And you delayed in that. Therefore, this episode of Dina happened to you. Verse 2. Ayemer Yaakov of Beis, and Yaakov said to his household, and told the people that were with him, remove from amongst you, from all your possessions, all the idols that are amongst you, and purify yourselves, and change your clothes. What does it mean? How did they have idolatry? Where were they getting idolatry there? Therefore he tells them, where did they have it from? That you own mishlol Shechem, from the booty that you may have collected when you ransacked Shechem. Vitaru, purify yourselves, mi'avedazara, from the idolatry. And change your clothes. What is he telling them? Shema yeshbiyetchem, maybe you have amongst you ksus shalavidazara, garments that belong to the idolatry, or that was used for idolatry. You got to get rid of it, and you shouldn't have it with you. Verse number 3. And we will get up and we'll go to Beisel, and we'll make a altar to God who has answered me in my time of distress. And he was with me on the journey that I took. Verse 4, and they gave it to Yaakov. All the idols that they had in their sherbiyadim, that was in their possession, and the nose rings and the earrings, Asherba's name, as an Asherba's name, and the earrings that were in their ears. And Yaakov buried them under the tree, Asher im Shechem, that was next to Shechem. Verse 4, Ha'ela, min ilei srak. What kind of tree was this? A tree that does not bear fruit. Thereby, that if somebody were to want to have fruit from it, it won't be that he's having pleasure from idolatry. Im Shechem, Eitzel Shechem, next to Shechem. Not that it was with Shechem. Verse 5. Vayiso, and they traveled. Vayihi chitas alikim ala harim asher svivei seichem. And they set out to travel, and the dread of God fell upon all the people around them. And they did not pursue Yaakov. Over here we're learning chitas, and then this is the verse where it talks about chitas, and the word chitas, Rashi tells us, pachad, gives fear. The fear of God comes upon the people around them, which tells us that by us learning chitas also causes the fear of God and the nations around us, and we are protected and protect ourselves and the Jewish people by the study of chitas. Verse 6. Vayave Yaakov Luza, and Yaakov came to the place called Uluz. Where is it? Asher beretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. He Beisel, that is Beisel, hu v'chol am asher imay, him, he and the entire people that were with him. Verse 7. Vayiven sham yizbeach, and he built an altar there. Vayikra lamakim keil Beiskel, and he called to the name of the place, which was Keil Beiskel. Vakisham niglo elav alikim, because over there God revealed himself, and he was fleeing his brother Esav. Keil Beiskel, what does that mean? How do we explain this verse? So explanation is as follows. HaKadosh Baruch Hu beveisel, God is in Beiskel. Gilush Chinasei revealed his divine presence in a place called Beiskel. Yesh Teva, and this is what he's coming to tell us here. Why? How? And this is missing a base in the beginning. Beveiskel. Because you have at times, yesh teva, there are words, chasera, that are missing the letter base, hamishameshes berishena, which the base which tells us what the word is all about in the beginning. It's called the base hashimush, that tells me what is this word, telling me how I translate it. And this is sometimes where you find that the base is missing. Niglu elav alikim. Why does it say niglu in plural? That God revealed him many times. We find this many times. That the name of God is used in plural. The masters of Yesaf anytime Elikim, in fact, the name of Elikim is plural because that is a terminology of discipline and judgment and severity. So therefore, it's here used in a plural terminology. And none other of the names of God will you find in a plural terminology, only Elohim, not any other one. Verse 8. Vatamas Tavera, and Devora died. Who is Devora? Menekes Rivka, the nurse, the wet nurse of Rivka. Vatikaver mitachas leBeisel, and she was buried below Beisel. Tachas Alin, under the tree. Tachas Alin, on a plateau. Vayikra Shmoi Alin Bachos, and they named that area, that plain, Alin Bachos, the plain of weeping. Vatomas the Veira. So the Rashi asks, why all of a sudden does it start tell us about the Veira that which she died? What's going on over here? So he explains as follows: what's the Veira have to do with Yaakov's family when he's coming back from Padan Aram? Rivka told Yaakov when he left, Vishalachti, and I will send Misham, and I'll call you to come back. Vishalachti Misham, Visholcha, who did she send? The Veira Etzel Padan Aram. She sent Devorah to Padan Aram to tell Yaakov it's time for you to come back. Lotzis Misham, to leave there and to escort him. And what happened to Mesa Baderech, and she died along the way. Midivrei Reb Moshe Darshan, this is from the words of Reb Moshe Darshan. Where did she die? That was on the way back. So she was the one to tell Yaakov it's time to come back. On the way, she died. Where was she buried? What does it mean, mitachas, under Beiskel? Ha'ir Yesheves Bahar. The city was on top of the mountain. And she was buried on the bottom of the mountain, and that's why it's called mitachas. Tachas ha'aloin b'shipule mishra, like means in the plain, in the valley. Shoya mishra, there was like a valley or a plateau. Milmaila b'shipua ahar, on top where the mountain comes to a point. Fakfura milmatan, she was buried on the bottom at the end of the plain. The mishra shall base ela yakarele an alin, and the plain of base El was called aloin. The Agada says, because over there at that time, Yaakov was also notified about a second episode. Besides the passing of Devorah, he was told about a second mourning, which was he was told that his mother died. The word Alan in another language means another. Because why did the Torah not tell us about the time of her passing? That the people should not curse him and say that the womb which from them came out Esav. Therefore, the Torah does not. Therefore, the Torah does not publicize what happened there as well. Meaning that because it was disguised from Yaakov and his children about her passing, therefore, it wasn't that people should say, "Oh, look at this woman who she's the one that Esav gave birth to." Others also explain in another place that this was also not to embarrass Yaakov, that he wasn't there to bury his mother. Another interesting thing that other commentaries explain as well, that this place where Devorah was buried was the same place later on with the second Devorah, the judge Devorah in the time of Barak. She sat under a tree and judged the Jewish people. This was by this exact place where the first Devorah was buried. Verse 9. Vayera Likim al Yaakov, and God again appeared to Yaakov, and he came to him and he blessed him. And he told, what does it mean? Oid? Pam Sheni b'makim is that this is the second time in this place. Echad b'lechte ve'echad b'shuvei, once on his way to Padan Aram and once on his way back. And he blessed him. What did he give him? He gave him the mourners, comforting on the mourners at this point because his mother passed away. So therefore he was offering him condolences. Verse 10. And God said to him, Shimcha Yaakov, your name is Yaakov. Lo Yikare Shimcha Yaakov, your name will no longer be called Yaakov, only Yaakov, Kim Yisrael Yishmecha, but rather your name will also be Yisrael. Vayikra Shema Yisrael, and he named him Yisrael. Lo Yikare Shimcha Yaakov, your name will not only be called Yaakov, Loshain, what's he coming to tell him here is, Loshain Adam Abba B'Maidav Akva, a name of a person who comes connivingly or deceitfully. Ella Loshin Ella, what's your name going to be? Yisrael, which is Loshin Sar V'Nagid, like a minister or an important individual. Verse number 11. Vayomer le'elikim, and then God said to him, Ani kel Shaddai, I am the God Almighty. Pray urevei, be fruitful and increase. Goyuk al goyim, therefore be fruitful and increase, and you shall be a nation and a community of nations. Yemimeka will be from you, will come from you. Umalachim, and kings, mechalotzecha yitzei, will be born from you. Verse 11, Rashi, Ani kel Shaddai. What is he coming to tell them? What is the word, special name of God's name over here? Going Shakai, Shani Chedai Lavarich. I am worthy and I'm able to bless you. Because all the blessings come from me. Preyureve. Didn't Yaakov have a nice large family by now? He already had 11 tribes and one daughter. Al Shem Shadayin Le'nelad Binyamin, because Binyamin still has not yet been born. Even though Rachel at this point was already pregnant, still in all, he was giving him the blessing that he will have another child. Goy, a nation, which is referring to Binyamin, which it's going to have, which will be the completion of the 12 tribes. Goyim, other nations as well, because who's the other nations? Menashe and Ephraim. Shasidim loyotzeis miyosef hem kemiyin ashvatim. The Menashe and Ephraim, which will eventually come born to Yosef, and they are going to be considered as part of the 12 tribes. And kings will come from your children. This is referring to Shaul and his son Ishbosheth, that was the king after him. Shayum is Shevet Binyamin, which were from Shevet Binyamin. Shadayin le'noilad, because Binyamin hasn't yet been born. So he's saying there will come from you, which is referring to Binyamin and the kings that will be born from Binyamin. Pasuk Zeh, this verse, Darshe Avner explained and extrapolated Keshehimlich Ishbosheth, when he made Ishbosheth, who was king Saul's, after Shaul died, and he made Ishbosheth king and not David, which came from the tribe of Yehuda. His explanation was because it says kings, plural. Binyamin, so too also the tribes explained this, and they were able to bring back the tribe of Binyamin after the episode of Pelegish Plegiva, which then they put them aside and they banned them. And they could exceed, as it says, Ish mimeno litem bitul Binyamin l'isha, because they said in the book of Judges, we have the stories that nobody should marry into the tribe of Binyamin. But then afterwards, they brought them back. Because he was part of the tribes, if he was not part of the tribes, then God wouldn't say that kings will come from him. And because God says that kings will come from him, we should bring them back and remove the ban and allow to marry into the tribe of Binyamin. Goyu kahal goyim, a nation and a nation of nations. Goyim asidim banav nations is that his children are going to do. Like kol goyim shem shiva mumits, they're going to be like the other nations of the world, the other 70 nations. V'chein kol Sanhedrin, and all these Sanhedrin are going to be 70. Dover acher, another explanation of this is shasidim banim lahakrav, because his children are going to bring sacrifices. B'shas isra abomis, in the time when the Beis Hamikdash was built, once before the Holy Temple was built, people were able to have private altars in the backyards. Once the Holy Temple was built and there was the altar in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, nobody was allowed to bring sacrifices privately. And therefore he says, when it was prohibited, while the others did not bring, other nations, they brought sacrifice where they want, kegoyim, that they brought in every place, b'meilio, and like in the time of Elijah the prophet, that only then was he allowed to bring, he was only allowed to bring in that place because that was a temporary ruling that he was allowed to be able to disprove of what was going on at the time. But generally not, and therefore he's talking about a nation amongst nations that they have different laws, while there are other nations in the universe as well, the 70 nations. However, it's referring to this idea of the sacrifices as well. This concludes the Torah reading for Thursday, the 5th Torah reading of Parshas Vayishlach.